It's time to figure out where in the world are we gonna tuck this amplifier in. Now there's a couple things that we have to consider when doing that, like where's the power wire gonna be, how to get through the firewall, you know, all those things. Like we like to go underneath the seat a lot of the times. Is there stuff underneath one seat, not under the other? Can we go into the trunk? If going in the trunk, what's behind where we wanna put it? So there's a lot of things. But the first is figuring out where the power wire is gonna go through. We don't wanna get all excited about putting it underneath the driver's seat and like it didn't matter, like there's nothing under the drivers, there's nothing under the passengers, just put underneath the drivers and find out we can't go through the firewall on that side. Let's take a look. There's plenty of room underneath this seat. It is, however, going to be an interesting amp rack. Before we do all that, let's take a look at the amplifier and figure out how big it is, and of course, unscrew this seat. Let's go over to the bench. This is the amplifier here, the Exelon X802-5 5-channel power amplifier. On the back side, it has a ton of specifications, but the ones you guys are interested in, it is 50 watts by 4 and 300 watts by 1, or 75 watts by 4 and 500 by 1, depending on the ohm load that you're looking for. Inside the box, we get the instruction manual, and in the instruction manual are some screws, as well as this pigtail right here, as if you are going to be doing high-level input, you'll want to use that. Removing the amplifier from its pillowcase. It's fairly small, as we can see. To get to our screw downs, you just have this little piece here that is removed. On the end is all your inputs. It is a fork style input for all of them. Power, your ground, your remote, speakers are all fork style inputs. 6-channel input. It does take a bass knob, however it does not come in the box in this particular one. It has 330 amp fuses. We are going to be installing that bass knob. And then on the back side, you have all your controls. 5 to 0.2 volts of adjustment on your gains, 1 through 6. You can use inputs A and B to create your sub input. There's a switch to do that here. You have bass boost, big fan of bass boost. Then you have your low pass, channel A, channel B crossovers, and then you can turn on and off channel A, channel B crossovers if you want to, but the sub output will always be crossed over somewhere between 50 and 200 hertz on all 3 of them. But this little guy here, we're gonna tuck underneath that passenger seat. Let's see what that looks like. With the seat up, we can see what kind of room we're dealing with. We have plenty of height. There is no problem there. And then for screw down points, see, this one is a little bit weird because normally we would use these, but it's way over here, and in the back it's the same. So it's like this cool little cubby hole here for the amplifier. There just happens to be a screw down located on either side of the amplifier. So there's one here and there's one there. So that means with some tweaking, some fun, going a little crazy, we'll be able to use those 2 points to attach our amplifier down. We don't want to put it all the way to the back because it is sitting down in that little ravine, and we need to make sure we can get to the controls on the back of the amplifier. But other than that, this spot should work perfect for it, which is exciting because now I get to make the amp rack to get it in there. Just like making those rear speaker pods, we're gonna head over to the plastic shop and cut some plastic and whatnot. For the most part, I feel this is gonna be a pretty easy amp rack, but we'll see. All right, we came up with this crazy design here. The amplifier is going to sit somewhere in this area. There's a little air vent that I want to cut around for, but either way, this is it, and this is what it looks like in plastic, right? So this sits in there. This is the little air vent. This is just a little winglet, just because I feel like I want some more, because there's nothing on this side. This is all just the fuses and stuff with the RCAs and everything, so I want just a little bit more room for holding down. This is going to go in there, and then I'm going to make a second piece. It's going to have those bends for screw down points, and for that, well, here's what that's going to look like. Now I need to combine the two. To do that, I'm going to take some of the super red tape, put it across here. I'll set that on top, I'll line it all up, and then I will pull it apart, add some screws so that it'll just be one piece. Let's take these over into the car and we'll see what it looks like installed. Looks like this. We'll add the two 10mm bolts into place to lock it down. The amplifier's not screwed in place yet. I just set it there to give it scale, but that's it. How cool is that? And with our amp rack done, that means it's time to go spend some time sitting at the workbench and adding a bunch of wires to it. There are a couple things I need to still figure out, like where am I going to run my RCAs? You know, simply the power wire is going to go right out and over across, and then Fernando has that plotted out. I'm thinking though, looking at the center console in this area all through here, is that probably use 6-foot RCAs and a short run of speed wire just to get it up into here, tucking everything alongside. I'm gonna take a look at this center console. Looks like it's 2 pieces, and see if that's possible. Fernando is working on the bass knob right now because he's jumping ahead. He found this area right here, which is nice and easy to get to. All set and ready to go. He can get to it from the backside, or this panel just comes out very easily. So we are making good progress on this, and as I said, I'm gonna be over here doing some wiring. Join me. The amplifier is secured to the amp rack. Put a little roll of tape here to keep it from wobbling, to be about the right height. We are going to be drilling some holes on this close to the amplifier. So I'll want to add a little bit of tape here so as to not scratch the top of the amplifier. I've prepared my wires that I know I'm going to need for this. My RCAs, I've added shrink wrap color coded to the position that they're going to be in. We like to use the colors of the standard wiring harness like we talked about earlier, with white, gray, green, and purple, and their corresponding positions. We have heat shrink that we put over the ends. For this we'll be using 6-foot RCAs. When plugging in your RCAs, I know this seems like a no-brainer. Make sure you check the inputs on where you're plugging these in. It would make sense that it would go front, rear, sub. However, some amplifiers go front, rear, sub the other way. And just like the back of the Kenwood radio, where front is in the middle and rear is at the top, doesn't necessarily make sense. But some amplifier manufacturers do that. And in the end, you're like, why is my fader and balance wrong? Those will go off in that direction. I want to secure them down. The other thing to do is, even though it totally makes sense that they should be going this way, there might be a hole in the carpet right here, in which case you'd want them to come out this way. So make sure you check underneath the seat to verify where your runs of wire need to go. In this case, it does make total sense to run them off this way. Even though there is a hole here, it has a vent, and that vent is going to kind of get in the way, whereas off to the side here, there's this nice open area that these can come right through. We'll be using our wire ruler to drill our hole spacing. You can find these at mobilesolutions-usa.com, and they come in 4 attractive colors. This is the shorter version of the wire ruler. It comes in 2 pieces. A longer version when you're wanting to do like all the way across here, and a shorter version when you just need to do something compact. There's holes along it, that's why it's called a ruler, and there's gapped accordingly, so the top is 1 1/4 and the bottom is 3/4. You can decide, do you want to go every hole? Do you want to skip every other hole? You can figure out your own pattern. You don't have to drill every hole. That's entirely up to you. It's just to keep everything nice and straight. They also have these cool little dashes here at the top. And the reason why they do that is because sometimes when you're mounting up close to an amplifier like this, you don't necessarily want the gap of the ruler to stop you. You want to go right in next to the amplifier. And so that allows you to line up your drill bit with that dash. This is one of those products made by installers for installers. Now, the reasoning behind not having like a whole bunch of holes in that is because, well, different applications require different widths between. I'm not sold on a preset width. For example, in this case, I have 3 RCAs. Sometimes they're going to lay next to each other like this, and sometimes they're going to lay on top of each other like that. So if I just made a generic holes this way, sure, I could go every 1/8 of an inch, and then I'd have to pick, but then this thing gets to be super big, and we wanted to keep it compact so that it would work easily around the amplifier and can get into small spaces. The idea is that we've done our first row. If you're really accurate, you could just drill your next one. However, I like to be precise, so I'll slide it down, hold it in place, and drill my second row of holes. If I line this edge up with the bottom of that hole, it gives me about 1/4 of an inch. I'll stack my RCAs on top of one another. This is the fun part. Tip the amplifier up. The head of the zip tie is important where it ends up going. For example, we have these holes here. I want to keep the head towards the bottom. The reason for that, if I have more holes that I need to drill, I want to make sure that this head is not blocking the hole of what I might do next. Coming from the back side, feed it through, and I'm going to come all the way to the end and do that one as well. With those in there, I need to get these RCAs laying flat and stacked on top of one another in the right direction, and also get them loose enough to where if I need to service them, they can come out. You don't want to make them so tight that this is not serviceable. When you get them all stacked up, pull them tight, and then grab that nice set of flush cutters that you have, flush cut them. Now the next step for this is we need to insulate these RCAs. These are going to be run all by themselves. There's a couple different things you can use. You can use tape, you can use TechFlex, whatever works for your particular thing. However, keep in mind that you need to do the whole thing. We get them in here, you've seen them, they're 911s. Some of these guys will do is they'll tape up this little area right here that you see before it disappears into the carpet. It's kind of a waste of your time. You're not actually protecting anything by doing that. The idea behind the tape or the TechFlex is to add another layer of insulation to the wire that you're running, and when you cover just the visible side of it, there's nothing there that you really need to protect. Chances are good it's going in an area that there's nothing that's going to happen to it. What you really have to worry about is the area that is like under the carpet, where the carpet could rub on it for years and years and years, or it might get stepped on, or who knows what could possibly happen. We've seen some crazy stuff. Keep that in mind. It's there to protect the wire, not to make it look pretty. In this case, it's a short run. We're going to be using some exterior tape, a little bit more rigid, handles heat better. And if you're curious how to tell the difference between the two, the interior stuff rips nice and easy, it's felty. Exterior stuff needs scissors. As you're wrapping, make sure to pull it nice and tight. You want to eliminate any air gaps. You want to make sure you get the tape glue sticking to the stuff that you're actually wrapping. You want it to pull tight. If you have gaps and it's loose, well, dirt is going to get in there. Heat is going to cause it to eventually decouple, and then you're just going to have a sticky gooey mess.